Let's talk today about boundaries. So, boundaries are a very powerful thing that are talked about everywhere, all over the web. And some people like them, some people have some issues with them. Some people are still recovering and healing from whatever boundaries were never set in place to begin with. And here's my take on boundaries. Boundaries are an energetic auric sphere in which we allow people to come into and out of our space. And so, depending on how we were raised, how we grew up in society, different connotations and dogmatic rules that we play by, we kind of sort of like fluctuate the size of our boundaries, and we can become a little bit more lenient or strict depending on who kind of exists within those spaces. And our boundaries are different for our lovers and our partners and the people that we spend the most intimate time with versus, our boundaries with our clients or with people that we work with. Our boundaries are also different with family members or people that we're just meeting the first time at a party or an event. And so the ultimate thing to recognize about boundaries and where they are the most supportive is when you can own your energetic space, full intact, no penetration pieces. That means that it's not actually about the boundary that's set in place, but you have a real defined knowing of who you are in the world and how you move about the world. And there's a sense of that state within you that is all-knowing, that is fully in a space of power, authority, and intimacy with oneself. You know what you like, you know what you don't like, you know what kind of environments suit you, you know what kind of environments don't suit you, you know what's best for you. And so it's not really about the boundary per se, it's about having the relationship within yourself. And so that's where I see boundaries as supportive, because a person that has strong, defined boundaries is a person that knows who the fuck they are. Boundaries can be unsupportive, I think, in relationships when we're using them as a wall or a mechanism to block intimacy, to avoid, to protect, to play small, to not recognize that there's a duality in this relationship here, a dual conversation happening. And so where boundaries can be unsupportive is when we put walls up that are so big, it actually becomes about the boundary. It actually becomes about the wall. And it's saying, I don't trust myself enough to have a relationship with you. So I'm going to put up this boundary, this blockade, this wall that doesn't allow me to be in a connection with you. And that's really where I see boundaries as unsupportive. It actually becomes about the thing instead of about you. Truly, my experience of boundaries is recognizing again, where can we be in the dance of having a relationship, of being in connection, and of being in this rapport with one another. So when you first meet someone, you can be the type of person that trusts every single person that you come across, or you can also come in with your own past experience of, well, I don't trust every single person that I come across because they haven't earned it. And I state that from, this experience I've had in my past. And neither one of them are right or wrong. It's just, again, recognizing where are you within your own energetic and auric space of noticing who you are in relationship with others. Now, if you were the type of person that grew up and everything and everybody was something that you needed to appease, you most likely didn't have a sense of self, because it was about, oh, so-and-so is not happy, let me make them happy, right? It has nothing to necessarily do with you not having boundaries. It's just you constantly being a chameleon so to speak, and needing to adjust yourself and be like something that was needed for somebody else instead of being someone that was needed for you. And so, where people that people please, people that appease, people that just have a hard time being in their own skin, the reason why we say those people generally tend to not have any boundaries is because they don't have that sense of self for them. They're not inclined to say no. And no is one of the most powerful words we learn as children. At the age of 3, when we learn no, we are standing and defying and saying, no, N-O, this is not what I want. And we are creating a moment of pause with whatever external, a parent, a caregiver, something outside of us says that, do this thing. And we're actually creating that boundary as I'm creating resistance and friction to meet up against you because I need you to see and pause and look that something isn't right for me here. And how many times kids was that boundary pushed past? Whether we were running late and we needed to get our shoes on, and so then they were forcefully put on. Or we were like, no, I don't want to eat that thing, and we still had to eat it regardless. And so how many times was no around your physical boundary violated? And so boundaries are actually very, very powerful and important because when we come from a place of no, it's us putting up a stop. It's like a stop sign, it's a red light. It is saying no, it is saying, hey, something feels like there's a perceived energetic crossing. And when we say no, it's actually right before the crossing happens. When someone crosses over into your boundary, most of the time people feel anger. And anger is an emotion that is when our perceived boundary has been crossed. And that's when anger gets elicited. When we say no, it doesn't mean that we're angry. When we say no, we're actually coming from a place of we're actually telling another person and communicating, stop, pause. I need you to notice this is where the line ends. And if that line gets crossed, that's when an emotional state happens. And what's fascinating is most of us grow up and think no means someone is angry, means someone's upset, means we've disappointed somebody. And so then we shrink back or we push forward for a sense of control. What if no was neutral? What if yes was neutral? We don't say up is better than down. We don't say left is better than right, unless you live in Europe, right? But what if you just had a moment and recognized no is just as neutral as yes? And a way that I find really powerful about the word no is pretty much the same language across many different cultures. We can say yes a bajillion different ways, but no is quite consistent across cultures. People actually understand when you say no. You can be dropped in the middle of a foreign country and not speak the language, and you can say no, and someone understands that. And I think there's so much power in recognizing that no is when we set a boundary. And there is something really powerfully important to recognize that is saying, hey, you've hit the end here. And it gives a person power to choose if they're going to take a step back to reassess and create that connection where maybe there's a new pathway forward, or if they're going to use that as a way to push past control and penetrate a boundary that was not asked to be penetrated to begin with. And so no is actually a new opportunity to meet someone from where they're at. No is a wake-up call. When someone puts a boundary up and says no, it is actually an opportunity to reassess, oh gosh, I'm not in my intention. I'm not here creating connection. Something is off. That doesn't make you wrong. That doesn't make you bad. It's just recognizing, hey, you don't have that right or that privilege or that trust to move forward. And honestly, That person that told you no, that person that gave you a boundary is giving you the greatest opportunity. Again, no is new opportunity. They're giving you the greatest opportunity to reassess how you are showing up and who you are being. And so getting clear on, I wonder why that was a no. And we can look at that in life when things aren't going your way and life is feeling like a no. Well, where have you put up a boundary within yourself? Where have you created energetic blocks for you to not be in the full receivership of the life that you want to have and live? It's never really about anybody else but your relationship with yourself. And so, boundaries, I think, are one of the most fantastic tools that we can play with and utilize and understand ourselves to a way deeper level. And so, if you're ready to play the intimacy game with yourself, I highly encourage you to comment below and tell me, what have you experienced about no growing up? What has been your connotation around the word no growing up? What has been your connotation around boundaries? Do you find yourself being a people pleaser? Do you notice where maybe you shapeshift or chameleon your way through life in order to be liked? Do you recognize that maybe there is a way in which you can hold yourself with boundaries that's not shutting people out or down, but it's creating a deeper ownership of who you are and who you want to be and how you show up in the world? I would love to hear all of your thoughts. I would love to know, what did you think of this video? Please comment below, what were your greatest takeaways? What is that golden nugget that sat with you that you are taking out and into the world? Because let's face it, transformation only occurs when you're willing to take action on it. So share below. That will ensure that you have really taken in this wisdom and you're going to amplify it in your life. And of course, if you loved this content, subscribe. And then you can always check your notifications so that you get all content that comes through. Because one of my greatest pleasures is to be able to see this energy being amplified and rippled into the world.